Tabor's cooking experience includes everything from giant meals for ranch hands to small, intimate dinners with her husband, Bill. Now here's Glenda preparing her famous country squash.
Hi y'all, my name is Glenda Tabor and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Austin Cooks. What I'm going to do for you today is a country squash dish. It's real easy, and what makes it even nicer is you can cook it in your electric skillet if you have one, and keep from heating your kitchen up with your stove. Now I've already sliced the squash, and I'm going to get ready here first of all with the diced onions. They'll be sauteed in the bacon grease. As you can see, I've already fried the bacon. And this meal you can prepare it with butter, margarine, or another oil if you're a little more health conscious than some other people might be, such as myself. So here we go with a little bit of garlic first. And some good old diced onions. And this is a real colorful dish too. It looks real pretty on the table. I'll get that sizzling right real quick here. So all you really need is some onion, some bacon, and you can use yellow squash, not necessarily the zucchini. I like it because it makes it real pretty. As you can see here, I have some tomatoes in the basket. I'm going to add those at the very end of this dish, and that'll really brighten it right up. This doesn't take very long at all. You just kind of have to stay with it mostly. Don't let anything cook too long. I thought I'd get in the mood today with my little country bonnet. My grandmother used to always wear one when she was cooking. She'd go out to the garden and pick her vegetables and come in with her basket full of goodies and cook in her bonnet. Had her apron on usually to match. Want to get those onions to where they're just a little bit golden brown. Now when I get through doing these onions, I'm going to remember where my pieces of garlic are, and I'm going to pull those out so nobody bites into a real strong piece of garlic. So I didn't cut those up. The dish to me is better with just a hint of garlic and not a whole lot of it. Using the bacon in it, you don't have to use too much salt if you are, again, health conscious and don't want to use too much of that. I like to use a little bit of nature seasoning at the very end rather than directly using salt out of the shaker. It's already prepared with a few other spices. I learned to make this dish. I was over at a friend's house several years ago, and I had a squash dish that I was talking about preparing, and he pulled out the squash and he went to town on a dish that he did, which is real similar. And I stood there and watched him, told him I was going to steal his recipe. Actually, this dish with the tomatoes is prettier than mine, so I have to give credit really to Bill Walston for this one. I think that's cooked just about enough. I'm going to add a little bit of water. Oh, but maybe about a cup. Not quite so much if you're not making as much squash. Pardon my hands, but I don't know any other way to do this really than to get my hands right in it. Isn't that nice and colorful? And while this simmers a little while, I'm going to take time to peel my tomatoes, which I grew out of my garden. I know they're good. And I'm going to peel those because this Texas hot sun sure makes those skins real tough. I'm going to set this aside, grab the lid to my skillet, and let that simmer there for a while. In fact, I'm going to sizzle the heck out of it. I believe I'll show these off right out of my garden. I'm real proud of them. The grasshoppers didn't get them. If you get your electric skillet up too high, you can cut it back if you hear it sizzling a little bit too hard. And cut it back and just let it simmer lightly. If you have a few minutes extra to prepare something else, you can simmer it real slow according to how your meal's coming along. This dish goes great with everything. Chicken, steak. It goes real well with black-eyed peas and some good country red potatoes and a cream sauce. If I had the time, I would have prepared the whole country meal, but I thought this would be a nice, light, easy thing to fix. Another good thing about this dish is after you've eaten it off the table the first time, if you have company, you can throw some more water in it, turn it to soup. It's wonderful. Bag it up and freeze it. Put it in the refrigerator, leave it for a day or so and let it season real good in the refrigerator. And it's even better the next day or two. In fact, I think I prefer to eat it after it's been cooked once and seasoned in the refrigerator for a day. I lived off of that soup for about 2 weeks back when I was sort of hungry, not making too much money and living on my own. Oh, that tomato smells good. I'm using my hands to do this because these tomatoes are very ripe. I'm afraid if I put them down on the cutting board, they're going to really smash all over the place. Use my hand with not a very sharp knife. You can't really do this if you're using a real sharp knife. That smells good. Let's check this, see how it's coming along. Oh, yeah. Oh, I just love to look at that green and yellow together. That's so pretty. Let that simmer there for a while longer. And then I'll add the nature seasoning to it. This is an old habit I also picked up from my grandmother again. She never put any vegetables down on the table and cut them. She was always in her hand, from her hand right into the pot. My grandmother, both sets of my grandparents were from Mississippi, and all those women down there could really cook. It was always a real delight to go and visit over there because everybody had wonderful food in the kitchen. And they all get a big kick out of watching city people eat it. They'll sit around the table and they won't eat themselves for watching you eat. So I guess this is my love for country cooking came from Mississippi. I don't like to cut the tomatoes in too small pieces. Leave them in fairly nice sized chunks so that you can see them and get the effect of all that nice color. as I said, I like to use a little bit of nature seasonings rather than salt and pepper out of separate shakers. This also keeps me from shaking that salt shaker too many times. But this gives it a real nice flavor. And when your squash gets just soft, just a little bit soft, of course you can use this for, excuse me, you can use this to any consistency that you want. You can have, if you like your vegetables crispy, that's perfect. If you like them nice and soft or mushy, however you want it. This is just real easy to do it any way you want. Ooh, that smells good. I'm going to let it simmer there for just another little while. And I'm going to add the tomatoes. Let's see, I had a big nice serving bowl I was going to put that in, and I don't see it around here now. But it'll look just as pretty from the skillet. While we have this out here, I'm going to right now add just a couple of pinches of this parsley in there, and that'll add a little bit of extra flavor in it. Parsley's always a nice garnishing greenery. Also, at the end, I sort of use it to decorate my dish. Boy, that sounds like it's really cooking now. I'm going to pick up all these utensils and show you something I thought was kind of neat. My husband and I were at the coast one summer, and right now I've got tomato juice on it, but anyway, this old cutting board I used came off a shipwreck we found smashed up in the jetties at Port Aransas. And so we wandered down there and got in the middle of that wrecked ship. Old boat, probably a shrimp boat really, and we pulled this piece of board off, and it's really kind of weathered and tattered. I really don't know what part of the boat it was really off of. It has a little interesting story to it, I bet. I'd like to know what happened to the old boat. But I just decided I had to have that piece of board, and I sent him down there in that water and all those rocks to get it, and he sure did. He went down there and pulled it off, brought it back to me. So I've been carting this thing around for several years, really enjoying telling about it. I use it all the time for lap board, cutting board, all kinds of things. Thank you. Oh, here we go. They're getting just perfect. It's making me hungry. Now when you put your tomatoes in there, you really want to save them for the very last thing, because they'll get real mushy, and then it won't look nearly as pretty the first time it's put on the table. And I'm playing around here picking out my little pieces of garlic I put in there, because that can be a wild surprise to bite into a big piece of it. We want these tomatoes right now, this time, to stay relatively firm in the dish, so you want to just add them right at the very last second. Just leave them in long enough to get them hot. I'm cooking this just a little bit harder than I normally would. I probably would be letting it simmer while I prepared something else in my kitchen. But for now, it certainly won't hurt the taste to let them cook a little hard right now. I think we're ready to add our tomatoes. Here we go. Looks beautiful on the table if you serve it in a nice serving bowl. It's a real pretty dish. I like to serve it in a nice clear bowl so I can see all the way to the bottom. I'm going to put the lid back on and I'm going to let that stay for just a little while. I'll pick up a little bit of mess here. And at the very end, I'm going to sprinkle these right across the top. I bet that's just about right. I can't wait. Just a little more pinch of nature seasonings or whatever seasoning you prefer. And I think we'll be ready to pour it up in the serving bowl. Unplug this. When you handle an electric skillet, you have to be careful. There's a lot of ways you could shock yourself if you didn't unplug it first before pulling this thing out. So, let me see how easily I can pour that in there without making a mess. Oops. I'm going to slide out of there. Well, I almost hate to mess it up by dipping it out. In this dish, I really like my squash to remain whole was the reason I wanted to pour it in there, but luckily I happened to bring this good spatula, so that ought to help. Egg turner, my husband would say. It's an egg turner. When you decide to make soup out of this, you don't have to worry about whether or not your squash are whole or not. The first time I serve it, I like for it to look real pretty. I like to make this dish too also because everybody comments on how pretty it is, let alone how good it tastes. It always makes me feel good, which is the main thing, the reason I think I wind up cooking for people anyway, is because I enjoy hearing what a good job I've done. We had a ranch with a lot of stable hands working for us for a while, and this was one of the things that was the favorite out there. The guys would always want me to make squash. Here we go. Let's smooth everything out just a little bit on top. Put some more tomatoes up there where you can see them. And in no time at all, you have a beautiful dish. Summer dish, real full of color and ready for the table. I hope you enjoy it. Try it, fix it, and I'm sure you're going to get a lot of compliments from all the people sitting around your table.
Country squash. 6 yellow squash sliced, 2 zucchini sliced, 1 small onion diced, 6 slices bacon crumbled, 2 cloves garlic, 1/2 to 1 cup water. 2 fresh tomatoes chunked, salt and pepper to taste, a pinch of fresh parsley. Fry bacon and drain. Use bacon grease or other oil to saute onions and garlic until golden brown. Remove garlic and discard. Add squash, seasoning, and water. Simmer until just tender. Add tomatoes, simmer with lid for 2 minutes. Crumble bacon on top and serve.